All right. Yo, guys, what's up? How you doing? It's me, ViBE, and I'm doing another replay analysis today for Muffin Maestro. And, Muffin Maestro, you are Diamond League, right? This is what this is currently? Okay, yeah. This is a Diamond 2 Zerg versus Protoss game. And if you guys don't know how these work, the way it's going to go down is I'm going to be watching from Muffin Maestro's perspective. And I'm going to be kind of telling him what I think he's doing right, what I think he's doing wrong, things to improve on, and just overall things to look out for in just a generic game of StarCraft. And basically trying to help him understand the strengths and like weaknesses of his build, more or less. It's like a quick coaching lesson, basically. And so far, we'll speed up just a tad because like nothing is really happening yet. But we have a 16 hatch going down. 16 hatch is great against Protoss. For anyone who doesn't know, it's massively important to get your head natural down before the probe gets here, and 16 hatch increases your odds of doing that immensely. So I really like the 16 hatch opener. If you go 17 hatch, it's just greedy. It doesn't really give you that much of an advantage in the greed department, other than the fact that you get a drone a tiny bit faster, but you don't larva cap either way, so it's not super critical. But getting your natural blocked is always terrible. Anyways, we have a third hatch going down now as well. This is actually a build that I like to do as well a lot. The power of this build is basically going to be just to power through your economy really hard. The biggest thing I would say with this build that you got to look out for is what the opening unit is going to be. Because if it is a stalker, you don't need to make lings as fast, and if it is an adept, you do need to make lings pretty fast. The last thing you want to do is start losing drones because all you're making is drones. This guy actually wasn't making a unit at all out of his gateway though, so not much is going on there for him. One thing I like to do as well with this build, ever since they nerfed creep, is I actually like one of my queens to put a tumor down and one of them to inject. It just helps a lot at dealing with the pressure, especially if it's an adept. So I really like the fact that he put a tumor down already. That's really good. And I would love it if the queen of the main injected the hatchery for the first use of its energy, which is what it just did. So far so good. I'm gonna pause it just really fast here for a second. So I really also like the what I always like to do is I always like to have the queen go from my natural always go to the third to become the third injector. The queen from my main will now become a creep spreader, and having a creep tumor in your main now would be nice. Like the next time you have energy for it, which is not yet, but soon. So it's just the primary goal is always to like connect your bases super fast, and then just keep the creep flowing from there. Now talking about the resources, the gases so far, I don't disagree with it, but if we look at production, I do disagree with the production a tiny bit. I think that there should be one drone being made right now instead of, one Zergling being made right now instead of 6 drones. So just make one ling, and the reason why I say this is because this dude has not made a second pylon as far as you know in his base. So the first thing I would do is I would scout back like you are to his natural and just see if he threw down another tech structure next to that pylon on his high ground in front of the natural. And if there is no tech structure there, I would immediately send my overlord down to the left side of his main to see if he has a pylon back there, like him trying to hide it or something. Because if he doesn't have, and then no matter what, I would still make a ling the second I haven't seen a second pylon yet. Because I would have one ling run on either side of the map along the border. Because you don't want to have a hidden tech go down, and this right here is like, if no second pylon is in his main, and you eventually scout the entire thing and don't see that, it's a higher chance of seeing a proxy Stargate or a proxy Dark Shrine or something proxied. It increases the chance of proxies super hard. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's perfect. I liked it, or I like it. For this right here, you actually now see it, so the ling doesn't matter as much. You now can assume there's a pylon somewhere in his base. Otherwise, this guy's build is just inefficient. But the fact that he has a robot and a forge, especially, there's no proxy anymore. It's not really relevant. But I like your gas timing, and I like your roach warren timing. It's really safe. It's not gonna, you're not gonna have any chance of getting crushed by anything. like in terms of like a warp prism pressure or anything like that now, if he were to do something like that. So overall pretty good. You're still just droning, which is what you're supposed to, what I would say you're supposed to be doing right now. One of the biggest things I would look for is I would watch, okay, hold on, I want to pause it really fast. A couple of probes just ran by the Overlord to his like to the low ground, I just checked the all vision and he does have a third. But if I were to see that, if I were to see, okay, this guy actually is sending probes down now, and he's not just sending one, he's sending multiple probes down to his third base. That third is outrageously early. It's so fucking vulnerable. And what I would say would be a great idea to respond to this would be drone all your larvae into, or make all your larvae into drones up until the point when that roach warren's done. And as soon as that roach warren's done, make like 12 roaches. Just seriously make like 12 roaches, because if this dude, and I would also possibly recommend getting Zergling speed early. It's kind of weird, but the reason why is because if we look at what this guy has, he has one gate and a robo. One gate and a robo has the ability to make immortals, and he also made a sentry. So if you make just like a few roaches, there's a very high chance he'll defend it. But if you just have some, if you really wanted to break it, to guaranteed break it, if you make like maybe like 16 Zerglings and like 12 roaches, guaranteed it dies. And then and the what, sorry? This is to break his third, just to kill the third. Because if this dude, if he makes a third that greedy, that fast, and then you kill it, everything he is doing behind that is so delayed, and then you don't lose that army either. You can just fall back, and that army now protects you while you fully saturate anyways, and you're super good to go. I would say, but if you don't kill it, the best response would be to, I would say probably just take a fourth and be extra greedy, because if he's taking a third that fast and he's making probes, he's delaying his gateways longer, because he's investing more into economy. So there's two. Yeah. Yeah. This is like. So I would say you don't necessarily need to pull off gas at this point in time, just because if we look at your larva right now, you just spent all of it. You have 0 larva on your hatcheries right now because you just spent it all, and you're making nothing but drones. So you're going to the drone department, which is fine. I don't disagree with that. That is one of 2 ways you can deal with this. Just be extra greedy. So there's no need to rip your drones off gas, because you'll have more than enough resources to do what's important, which is continue spinning your larva. You just don't ever want a larva cap. And then as soon as you have 300 minerals while spinning your larva, I would say would be then a good time to take a 4th base. And if you're gonna go the route of not killing his third early, which is, again, it's fine, but what you should do then, I would say, is maybe gear up for a faster timing than normal, like a Roach Ravager timing. Instead of going to like Hydras or something like that. Because if you gear up for like a Roach Ravager timing, you can do it right as Roach speed finishes, and you could greedily saturate every base you own right now, get all the gases going, so you could easily support like a pretty good amount of Ravagers in your army, maybe like 10 Ravagers in your army, 8 Ravagers in your army. And that would be very, very hard for him to deal with that if he has very low gateway counts. Fuck. Alright, 1 second. I'm just gonna pause this. Say something now.
Hey.
One more time.
Chat hear me now?
Yeah, they can. Yeah. Okay. That was yeah. It's the dual PC setup thing. It's I had to put you on the capture card instead of the Corsair thing. All right, that sucks.
That's fine.
All right, so yeah, it's just you're going the drone route, which is totally fine. I would just say killing the third though is definitely worth your while. This third is way too greedy for him.
Yeah. I'll definitely do that next time though. Just go for roaches and road speed and a couple of links and just kill the third.
Yeah, there's no way he defends it.
Yeah, because I also scouted that he didn't have many gates, so
yeah.
That's probably a little bit.
The only way he could pull this off is with one gate. That's the only. There's no way he could have like multiple gates and go for a third at like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But you've gone the drone route, which again, what you've done so far, you still are you're in a very winnable position here. This is very good still for you because he's been greedy, but so have you. You've been extra greedy as well. And now he's taking a fourth. Oh my god, this guy's greedy.
Yeah.
Roach Ravager would definitely be like the go-to here because it would just hit so much faster. The reason why, I'm gonna pause it really quick and just explain why. So normally in this build, when I go Hydras and I I'm always like, I always say specifically a lot of times to everyone who asks me questions or watches it, I always say if you don't have AoE in your army, you don't have banelings, you don't have lurkers, you cannot take a fight off creep for the first time when the big fight happens. Like when the Protoss is going to have like this high supply charged Archon Immortal type army with maybe Templar or Sentry or whatever. If you fight off creep without AoE, you're going to lose. That chances of you losing are very high. So waiting until he pushes on creep means that not only are you going to have your upgrades closer to being done, if not already done, because it takes time to get your upgrades for Hydras, like speed and range, but it also increases the ability to max out more likely before he attacks you. Like most of the time, you'll like just barely max, or you'll be at like 180 plus supply on a standard game, and then your Hydra speed will be like almost done, or vice versa. The range will be almost done, which is the second upgrade, which means your first upgrade will already be done. So it hits this like nice defensive timing, basically. But that's the key word there is a defensive timing. The big problem here about playing a defensive style now is that your opponent has been excessively greedy, and it can be punished. So if you play a defensive style here now, you're allowing him to get away with it. So this is a special case scenario where your opponent's been just stupidly greedy, and punishing that, whether or not it's after you've saturated 3 bases or before. After would be okay with Roach Ravager. Before would be great with Roach Speedling. Either way, though, you should punish him for doing this. So then if you don't, it's just allowing him to get away with being greedy, and it'll make the game overall harder for you.
Yeah, this actually happens. I wouldn't say often, but it actually happens quite frequently, maybe.
Yeah.
At my MMR rating, like people do like crazy shit like this. So. Yeah.
Yeah. Just keep that in mind. The defensive or like Hydras are defensive, so unless they're playing all in or standard, don't be defensive. If they're being extra greedy, you should be aggressive. Yeah. Your creep spread's good though.
I did. Yeah, I did scout his force, so that's why I just continued droning up like I do.
Yeah. I would say a really big thing here. I'm gonna pause it again. If your opponent is being greedy like this, and you're going to allow them to take a base like this, like you're gonna be like, all right, well he's got a fourth. My response is gonna be greed. It's gonna be drones. I don't mind that's gonna be your response, but if you're up until the point when you're 3 base saturation, and like you start a 4th base, you could that would be the time when I would say you need to do a Roach Ravager timing. But as soon as you see he took a 4th and you say, you know what, he's got a 4th now, I'm going to go into a 5th base and make more drones. This is I would say the Roach Ravager window is now disappearing if you're going to make drones again. But now you have the ability, because you have so much economy, to do something else, which would be maybe you should tech harder, because you don't really have any downside. If you're not making like a timing and you're making economy, you will have the ability to max out pretty fast once you're done droning anyways. And if you're going to be defensive then you could make like Hydras and you'd be okay, which is what you're doing now. But I would say the best way to play out the situation, if you're going to play it like this, where you're going to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm still going to play a defensive game. I'm still going to get my Hydra upgrades. I'm still going to creep spread and just play it patiently. I would say you really need, instead of getting like pathogen glands on this infestation pit, it should have been a hive and a spire. Because you're going to be fighting a Protoss who is rich, super rich, and he's going to max almost as fast as you are. As you can see in the supply right now, he's keeping up with you. Even though you have a lot of money,
Yeah.
gas is your downside here. Like, you don't have infinite gas. Like, getting all the upgrades initially, getting all your tech initially, going into Hydra heavy army initially, it's all gas heavy. So you can't just max automatically. It takes time. And with the time that you're going to take defensively, it would, if you had the ability to go into Broodlords behind this, you would probably max one time on Hydra, and then maybe take a little bit of trade here. You fight, you maybe lose like 20 Hydras or 10 Hydras, back up, and then suddenly you just make Corruptors and then get ready to make Broods right after. And if he still commits to ground army after the first time you fight like that, it doesn't matter that you let him be greedy. You just made an army that is so cost efficient against what he could do in terms of anything on the ground. But the last thing you want to do, though, is allow the Protoss to be cost efficient against you, which is kind of what's going to happen here if you fight with Hydras against a rich, greedy Protoss, ground versus ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because from the production tab, what I can see is going to happen is you're going to run into Colossus Immortal and a bunch of gateway units, and then your Hydras are just going to get melted. It's going to be rugged, dude.
Yeah. You're a wizard, Harry. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here, but yeah.
But yeah, Broodlords would be Broodlords would be great, man. Like if you just have since you're also richer than you normally are, going for faster Broodlords would be a great idea here too.
Yeah. What I think what I'm thinking here is from your last analysis, it was obviously not this much greed. And you said like I should max out first and then take into Broodlords, and I think that's my mentality here. That I want to first max out with Hydra Roach and then go into Broodlords. So
yeah, I'm gonna pause really fast because I'm glad you said that.
Sure.
There's a reason why I would tell you to do that, and this is kind of the balance of why I would just say to do that in general. If you have like 3 types of Protoss, you have extremely aggressive Protoss, you have standard Protoss, and then you have extremely greedy Protoss. If the Protoss is really, really aggressive, that's when I would say you really need to max out, because you're going to get attacked, and the last thing you want to do is be under like you don't want to have less supply because you're investing in a tech that's going to get you ready for 3 minutes from now when you need to be ready now. Otherwise, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So you don't want to invest in future investments when you could die now against an ultra aggressive Protoss. And the way you can tell that is how delayed the third is. Like if it's anything beyond 5 minutes and 20 seconds, it's every second that goes by is more and more and more aggressive of a Protoss. But that 520 is already aggressive Protoss. Like 445 third, right around 440, 445, 450. That's a standard Protoss. And that is when I would say you could totally tech while going Hydras. You should still max out, but you should still also prioritize your larva. But if you ever at any point in time are like, all right, I have a little bit of excess money right now, I can afford to make a Spire and a Hive. Do it. That's totally fine. Because you're not under like massive amounts of strain on your production, because otherwise you're gonna die. Like you're okay. Like it's not that big of a deal yet. There will be a timing, but it's not probably going to kill you really hard. You have a very realistic chance to defend. But then if you play against somebody who is massively greedy, and you try to match their greed by also being greedy yourself, you could take your tech and not stop yourself from producing. Because if you're going to make extra drones, you have extra money then, which could also be invested into faster tech while not messing up your production, because you just have more income. So just keep that in mind. Those are rules you should try to follow. And this one fell under the category of extra greed, because his third, if it's anything like anything before 4 minutes 30, if they throw a third down, anything before that, that means they have very small amounts of production. And this dude took a third at like 3 minutes, which is like it's ridiculously greedy. That's like asking to die, basically. So yeah, I would say definitely don't delay your tech this game, because you've also been more greedy. So you would have had there would have been no hiccup in your production had you kept making teched really fast.
Yeah. As you see, I only made one Evo chamber this game.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's good. I would say like I don't really mind that you got 2 weapons as well on the Hydras, but I would highly recommend going for +1 range and then going all the way from level 1 to level 3 melee right away, right after. And the reason the reason why is because you can you're gonna max. You will always max on Hydras one time, no matter what kind of a Protoss it is. You're always going to max one time on Hydra. It's just the only thing I was telling you earlier was like how fast you want to really tech yourself up to Hive, but no matter what, you're always going to to do this build correctly. If you're gonna skip AOE, like skip Lurker, skip Bane, you always should be remaxing into Broodlords. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you're maxing on Hydras, you're taking fights, and you're remaxing on Hydras, you're taking fights, and you're remaxing on Hydras, you're doing it wrong, basically. And there's only one time when you should ever actually have to do that, and it's if you ever make a mistake where it's like your Protoss pushes you and you eat like the shit out of 2 storms, and you're like, oh my god, that wasn't supposed to happen. I really need to remake Hydras right now because there's no way I have Broodlords in time. Well, then obviously you have to remake Hydras because you're gonna die. But that's still a mistake. That's still not good for you. That's not what you wanted to happen. But if you ever remax on Hydras, usually it means you're making mistakes when you play. That shouldn't happen. So switching out of range weapons and going into melee is always really good because it really buffs the ability to have Lings and Broodlords with Broodlings. Like Lings are just amazing at counterattacking and forcing fights, and Broodlords, as you know, are just gods at killing a Protoss ground army. They're so good.
Yeah. My late game goal is almost always to go pro. I mean, for Broodlords.
Yeah.
Like your end game is like the best version I know. So yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah.
I rarely get there because I fuck up in this stage of the game. So.
All right, I'll see how you go about fighting it. I'm gonna pause it again just because of what's happening right now, and a little bit to talk about. If you ever, this is a big recommendation. If you ever see a Protoss pushing you with Colossus, or you ever catch wind that they're making Colossus, maybe with an Overseer Scout or a Changeling or whatever, I highly recommend making a Lurker Den. Just because. Okay. If you fight against Colossus without Lurker, it's mostly Hydra, you're going to have a really hard time ever actually dealing with it. But if you just go, okay, this guy's actually going Colossus, let's make a Lurker Den. One way to spot they're going to go Colossus is if they go really fast Robo, and they also go Sentry. Like, this guy didn't really make a lot of Sentries, but most Protosses will make a lot of Sentries with defensive Robo style, which usually means they're going to be going to Colossus. That's one kind of a tell, even if you can't scout it. But and there are other kind of minor ways to find it out, but let's just keep it really simple. We'll just say if you see a Colossus, and you know he's making them, highly recommend making a Lurker Den. Because if this guy takes a while, if you can be like, I'm going to poke your 4th, I'm going to poke your 3rd, and you make him stay defensive, and you buy yourself some time to get Lurker Den out without throwing your army away, you just make him you just make him feel like he has to stay defensive because he doesn't know how all in you're going to be. Or you're making him feel like he's being overwhelmed. If you just buy enough time to get Lurkers out, and you make like 8 Lurkers against this kind of an army, you're 100% fine. All you got to do is, you still can go into Broodlords. It'll be a little bit more delayed and stuff like that. But the second you get a Hive, you get the Lurker Den upgrade, and you never, ever, ever push the Colossus until that upgrade is done. If the upgrade's not done, all you want to do is burrow your Lurkers to zone him wherever he's trying to go into your base, and then you can like use like an Overseer and some Hydras near your Lurkers to be like, hey, an Observer's right there. Let's try and not make sure it doesn't see my Lurkers. Let's just kill it. Don't let it see my stuff. But you stay defensive. You just guard the Lurker. But the second the upgrade's done for the burrow speed of Lurker, if you just make a concave, run at him, and then burrow your Lurkers in his face, if he does not run away, and if he doesn't just seriously run away from your Lurkers right when you burrow, his entire army will die, with Colossus included. It's so good. Because on creep a Lurker with the speed upgrade, because not only does that upgrade give a Lurker burrow speed, it also gives it movement speed. The Lurker can run a Colossus down really fast, and it can also run down every gateway unit. It makes it really realistic for you to just shove this kind of army to death. And then it allows you to survive the mid game to actually go Broodlords. Because if you skip Lurkers against someone who goes Colossus, you almost always will die to a mid game timing. You'll never get to Broodlord.
Okay.
But yeah, Lurkers, I would say that's the only time you really need to go Lurker. If you see Colossus, counter it with Lurker. Otherwise, you don't need them.
Yeah. Good. It's a great tip.
Yeah, this is just like AoE central here. Storm, Colossus beam, you're dead.
Made 7 copters here to make it to Broodlords eventually, but I haven't even started my Greater Spire, so...
Yeah, this is exactly... Go ahead.
I think I'll actually clear this with Hydras, with the Reinforce, but I spend all the bank or something. I can't really remember, but...
Yeah. It's just, you're kind of falling into that trap right now where you skipped the safety net, like the safe phase for Zerg, which is Lurker, when he's going for this kind of a timing, and you should die to this. You're doing a decent job cleaning up like with your reinforcement wave, but still, like, it's kind of a situation where the damage has kind of been done, and he's now just if he wasn't flooding you, you could defend this, but he's gonna keep kind of leaning on you, so you are going to die because your army is gonna bleed out more and more and more. But as I say that, you actually killed most of his army.
Yeah, because I'm actually keeping up at this point, and I'm feeling really good because I just saturated the 12 o'clock phase.
Yeah.
So, and I have decent creep spread still, so I actually feel kind of good starting the Greater Spire, and then I remax on Hydra to be safe, and then my plan is to go into Broodlord after, but yeah, you'll see.
Yeah, well, this dude has like 5 robos, and that's insane. Like the amount of production he's gonna get out of, or he's got 4 robos.
Yeah. And equal set of bases, so
yeah.
I know it's bad, but yeah.
His army is also like, I'm gonna pause it one more time. Just like compositionally, this guy's army is so expensive compared to yours because he's got nothing but power units. Like for every 3 Hydras you have, he has a Colossus. For every 2 Hydras you have, he has an Archon or an Immortal. Like Hydras don't trade. If you have that exact ratio of Hydra versus any one of those things, you'll lose in every single one of them. 2 Hydra, like the best possible one you'd have would be 2 Hydras versus 1 Immortal, but still I think 1 Immortal would win there. And then especially if the Immortal just like kited basically. But the biggest thing, the biggest problem is when you put it all together, the trade ratio gets even better for Protoss because it becomes like it's exponentially more damaging to you the more of it he has. It's like siege tanks. Like 1 siege tank is okay, but like 10 siege tanks is fucking insane. So it's just, your position right now is just like really, really difficult to work with, unless you had like Broodlords. But having to remax into Hydras is kind of what I was talking about. If we look at it how I just talked about it a second ago, where if you would have said to yourself, oh, he has Colossus, and I scouted that, I'm gonna make Lurker, and then suddenly you keep him at bay with your Lurkers. And now, if we look at resources lost, instead of 17,000 for you, it's only 11,000 or 10,000. And then for Protoss, instead of 11,000 for him, it's only 6,000. Like a lot, you just have a lot more money to work with because you didn't take a massive fight and have to remax. You might take a little bit of losses here and there, but it's like overall, he went Colossus, you went Lurker. He couldn't break you, so the game goes on from there. Getting Broodlord then would have been way faster, way more realistic, and all those corruptors you made that actually just died while killing Colossus and the Warp Prism, those would have actually been Broodlords. And you could have actually had like now 8 Broodlords or 10 Broodlords. And suddenly now you have, now you're the one with like the Death Ball that has like an amazing ratio of trading compared to what he has. Because he has a bunch of units that can't even shoot Broodlords like Colossus and Immortal. So, yeah, that would have been super, super good had the game gone that way for you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, but yeah, it's really great. It's a nice breakdown.
And then he's gonna push, and you're gonna die. This is not gonna go well.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter if you were moving or not. Like even if you were on a move the entire time there and had perfect micro, your army would still get shredded there. It doesn't. No, the best micro in the world wouldn't save you there, because just of composition.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just kind of speed it up to the very end here.
Yeah.
All right, so
I actually have one. I'm sorry.
do you have a question? Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, no, it's not. Only if you would like to do one more replay after this, but it's up to you. We can talk about that later. I'm sorry.
Maybe let me. I'll say this first, and then fine. That's fine. We can do one more.
Yeah.
So like you asked before, what are like 3 things you can work on here? I would say number 1, try to read your opponent. Like you read your opponent pretty decent, I would say. Your opener was not bad, but just try to make sure you're keeping tabs on what is happening. And the biggest thing would be you need to react in a certain way. You have 2 ways to do it. You have either a counter way or you have a match way, where countering would be like, oh, you're doing this, I'm going to counter that and I'm going to kill that. Or you could say, oh, you're doing this, I'm going to match that and be more do more than what you are. So like if he's being greedy, you can either kill the base or you can make a shitload of drones and expand again yourself. You made drones. You did the drone route, which is totally fine. But honestly, dude, the biggest, like, your build worked. I would say your build overall worked this game. The biggest mistake you made though this game is you broke the rule of be ultra defensive versus you know, be the opposite of what the Protoss is. Be ultra defensive against really aggressive Protoss. You can be like kind of standard against standard Protoss, or you can be you could be ultra aggressive versus greedy Protoss, or you could be ultra greedy versus greedy Protoss. But the thing was you went actually ultra. You did like a kind of like a mid-range greed defense versus a ultra greedy Protoss. I'm trying not to make this sound confusing, but
it's fine. It's fine. I understand you.
Yeah. It's just that your tech was too late, and the biggest one that I can say that you didn't know was the lurker thing against Colossus. That's so fucking important. That's really, really important. But yeah, the Brood Lords could have been a lot faster.
Yeah. If I had that information, like if I knew that, I'm sure I would have taken straight to lurker den instead of going for a spawn.
You can do,
and then went into Spire. Yeah.
Make sure and keep in mind though, if you play against someone who's going for, let's just say hypothetically, you see a this game right here, and you're like, oh, he's going Colossus, and you just started your Spire, and you just started a Hive. I would say you can still keep the Hive going, and you can start a lurker den then, and it's totally fine. You don't need to like cancel anything or delay the Spire, because you're not really gonna, unless the Protoss is like 2 base and going for like a 2 base Colossus all in, he's not gonna do this ridiculously fast timing. You will have time to prepare for it, and this guy obviously didn't go for 2 bases. If it was a 2 base all in, I would say maybe you should start your lurker den before your infestation pit. I mean, you really can only do that as well if you somehow scouted it, because you'll have no idea otherwise. And a way to kind of get around that, to give you kind of more advice in that department, is if you don't see a Protoss's third by 520, make an Overseer and scout their base. So you can find shit out like that, where it's like, oh, he actually is going for Colossus, and now I can make a lurker den so I don't die to a really fast timing. But if it's like a standard Protoss, you should be able to figure it out just eventually. You can make an Overseer still if you want, even though he's on 3 bases or whatever. Make a run a Ling around his base or something. But yeah, good economy, good creep, bad tech, and bad units. Otherwise it's not bad.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.